Hello, I'm Leanne and welcome back to my crafty cupboard. Here I'm sat in my comfy chair working on another block in the Gathered Things quilt series. So today I am stitching down a favourite doily that will also feature some of my own embroidery, so it's hitting a couple of prompts. I think that's probably going to happen a lot through the project, that, the prompts will be hit a couple of times over and over because of the nature of it. So I'm just stitching with a running stitch the round part of the doily down to secure it to my backing fabric so I can start the embroidery. So in this video I'll show you the embroidery. I'm planning on using ribbon embroidery and also working with thread. Then I'll quilt it by hand with running stitch. Just going to tie that off at the back here. I like to take a couple of little stitches and then feed the needle back through the loop, or sometimes I take a stitch, leave the needle in, wrap the thread around a few times, sort of like a French knot, and pull it through to secure it. So these are threads that I had left over from my embroidery that I picked up, the kit I picked up in Japan, and it's perfect colorway for this project, so I've just kept them together on a ring in with the project bag. So I'm going to separate the strands here and this stranded cotton. How do you tie knots? I always do this way. That's the way I was taught as a child. I know a lot of other people do the style of knot where you wrap it around your needle. I was intrigued the first time I saw that. I'd never seen it before, and I saw all the sort of slow stitch community on YouTube doing that, wrapping it around the needle and sliding it down. I was like, wow. I think I had to watch it many times, and I even actually asked some people, what are you doing when you do that? I can't get it. It's interesting, isn't it, when we see people doing things differently from how we're used to. I remember the first time I saw my friend's mum knitting when I was in primary school, and she was Swedish, and so she was sort of holding the needles and moving the needles back to front to how I had learnt from my grandmother, and it was a really interesting, fascinating thing to watch and to see that, you're still getting the same product. It's just a different way of doing. It's like with crochet too, isn't it? When you crochet, do you hold your crochet hook underhand or overhand like a knife? So once again, I learned underhand, and that's how I hold it. But yeah, I can see a lot of modern crocheters hold it overhand like a knife. It's really, really interesting. So I'm just doing a satin stitch leaf here. So starting at the top point and come down to the center line with a stitch, and then the satin stitches just sort of sit in beside that. So I'm doing half the leaf at a time. So once I finish this side of the leaf, I will come back and do the other side of the leaf. The embroidery drawing that I have here is just a hand drawing that I did straight on the piece with an erasable pen. So it's a water erasable pen. And I simply drew a circle for the wreath part of it, and then I drew a little circle at the bottom on the top of that, for that's where the ribbon rose will sit. And then I've drawn 2 leaves out to the side. And then I'm going to come around here now and do the other side. There, that's what it looks like with the leaves done. So I was explaining about this wreath. So I'm just stem stitching the wreath. I think it gives a nice sort of look to it. It's sort of quite solid, and yeah, I like the way it sort of gives you like a pattern line, a bit like a plait, half a plait. And on the back, you see it just looks like backstitch. So in fact, backstitch and satin stitch are the same thing as one another. It just depends on what's showing on the front and what's showing on the back. So yeah, I'm going to do stem stitch all the way around. These little fronds that I've drawn sort of kicking off the wreath, I'm doing those in backstitch now. So I just want them to sort of sit a bit thinner than the main wreath. What are your favourite stitches when you're working? I think I use a lot of stem stitch, backstitch, French knots and lazy daisies. Okay, so that's the greenery of our wreath. That's what it looks like. Let's get some pretty flowers on. So this cost me all of $1 from the sewing basket. These are lengths of silk ribbon. And then this is Ecovita wool that was left over from my embroidery project, the kit that I bought in Japan. It was a DMC kit designed for the Ecovita wools. So the woven ribbon rose starts off with 5 spokes, 5 straight stitches there. And this one I'm going to put 3 French knots in the middle, I think, just to give it a bit more of a substantial, interesting middle. You know, the colour palette for this came together so quickly and so easily, and I do find when I go op shopping in thrift stores, that I like to sort of gather things along a theme, things that are, you know, similar colours, etc. And so that way, when you try and pull a project together with them, you can. It's easy. You've got enough of what you need to make the project. I do have sort of lots of random fabric purchases as well, and honestly, they've sat in the box for years waiting to be used. So I find that pattern of shopping a palette really, really helpful. So I've shown this a few times on my channel now. It's one of my favourite, quickest flowers to do, and it gives a lovely 3D effect. And you're simply weaving the ribbon over and under those spokes. So if you go over one, you're going to go under the next one. And because it's an odd number of spokes, in this case 5, that means it'll alternate between over and under, hence the woven rose name. So easy. Okay, time for another little favourite rose. I always find this one a little awkward, so we're doing a colonial knot, and then you just running stitch the needle back down the length of the remaining ribbon to the point of the fabric, and then go into your fabric where the ribbon, right beside where the ribbon came out. And then as you pull it down, the little knot that you've made secures that ribbon gathered, and it looks like a beautiful little rose. So I could do more of those dotted around the wreath. Okay, so let's add a little bit of softness to the wreath now. So I'm going to add a little bit more greenery just with some ribbon stitch. So ribbon stitch, you just lay it out flat and stab the needle through it. And you have to be careful here that you slow up as you get, towards the end as you're pulling it, because otherwise you just pull it through and lose your leaf. Okay, so you've come up out of the fabric, lay it down, stab through the ribbon. Then pedal to the metal, pull it, then slow up at the end so that you're not pulling it right through tight. That's what it looks like. Okay, and some more frothiness. I think 3 little French knots at the end of each straight stem, wispy stem, will make a nice sort of blossom look to the piece. I'm using pale yellow thread. It's just 2 strands of DMC embroidery floss. I think blue would look very sweet as well for this if you used a soft blue like forget-me-nots. A little softness. Okay, last thing I'm going to add is like a little fern leaf, if you like, and I'm going to do that just simply with a fly stitch. So you take a straight stitch, and then you come up beside the top of the straight stitch or just slightly below it, go in directly across and emerge at the bottom of your straight stitch and pull your thread over it, making a Y. So you go down, same thing again, come up on the left-hand side, go directly across the right-hand side, emerge at the bottom of your straight stitch and pull your thread down. It gives you frothy little ferns. Satisfying part-time, remove the blue pen lines. I just keep a water brush pen in my sewing equipment. Ta-da! Okay, now it's time to secure the rest of the doily down, and I decided to wait until I had the quilt sandwich ready so that I would effectively be quilting the pieces together at the same time as securing down the edges of the doily. So I'm just taking tiny little stitches that will secure the doily down and not make very visible stitches front or back. If you're not sure what I mean by the quilt sandwich, watch my last video in this series because I take you through making the block, and the quilt sandwich is essentially this top fabric, a wadding layer, and then the backing fabric. So I think I'll stitch around the edges of the doilies so it's secured, and then maybe another little circle in the center of each crocheted round. And my plan is just to do a straight stitch quilting in the background, like that crisscross pattern like I did on my last one. I'm also toying with the idea of drawing a circle in the center of the embroidery and doing a grid pattern across that as well. But I'm not sure yet. I'll do all the other quilting first, see how I'm going for time, because, you know, I'm already months behind in this project, and we'll see what happens. So here is the finished block. It is so satisfying to do these projects and have that finished block. And my last video actually gave quite a few suggestions of how you can use these finished blocks if you don't want to make a quilt. Well, it's been lovely stitching with you again today, and I hope you come back and visit me again next week. Take care, everyone, and I will see you next time.